In 2019, Starbucks was everywhere. On busy street corners in New York, inside luxury malls in Shanghai, in airports, hospitals, college campuses, and suburban drive-thrus across America. Its green siren logo had become one of the most recognizable symbols on the planet. Customers lined up daily to pay $5, $6, even $7 for a cup of coffee, something they could technically make at home for cents. And yet, they kept coming back. Starbucks had cracked the code on premium coffee at scale. It wasn't just selling caffeine. It was selling ritual, identity, and a third place between home and work. Revenue surged. Store count expanded aggressively. Investors cheered. Today, however, Starbucks faces mounting pressure. Slowing traffic in key markets, rising labor costs, unionization battles, intensifying competition from fast-growing chains and independent cafes, changing consumer habits, economic uncertainty squeezing discretionary spending. The same brand that once defined modern coffee culture is now fighting to redefine itself for a new era. This isn't just the story of a coffee chain. It's the story of how a company transformed a commodity into an experience, and how maintaining that magic became exponentially harder as it grew. Here's how Starbucks built a global empire, and why its next chapter may be its most challenging yet. Starbucks didn't start as the global giant we know today. It began in 1971 in Seattle's historic Pike Place Market, founded by three partners who simply wanted to sell high-quality coffee beans and equipment. There were no caramel macchiatos, no frappuccinos, no drive-thrus, just beans. The transformation came in the 1980s when Howard Schultz visited Italy and experienced the espresso bar culture of Milan. He didn't just see coffee being served, he saw community, conversation, a daily ritual. Schultz envisioned bringing that European cafe culture to America, not as a luxury, but as a lifestyle. By 1987, Schultz had acquired the company and began expanding aggressively. Starbucks didn't just sell coffee. It sold atmosphere, soft lighting, jazz music, baristas calling your name, comfortable seating, a place to meet, work, or pause. This third-place strategy became Starbucks' first competitive advantage. Through the 1990s and early 2000s, expansion accelerated. Starbucks went public in 1992 with just 165 stores. By the mid-2000s, it had thousands, then tens of thousands. Unlike traditional diners or fast food chains, Starbucks positioned itself as affordable luxury, a small daily indulgence. Even during economic downturns, customers were willing to cut big expenses before giving up their morning latte. But Starbucks' real genius wasn't just branding. It was operational consistency at scale. Every store, whether in Chicago or Tokyo, offered a familiar layout and menu. The supply chain ensured quality beans from around the world. Training programs standardized customer service. Starbucks became both global and local at the same time. And then came product innovation. Seasonal drinks like the pumpkin spice latte became cultural phenomena. Cold beverages expanded margins. Food offerings increased average ticket size. The company turned customization into a feature, not a burden. Want oat milk? Extra foam? Sugar-free syrup? Starbucks didn't just allow personalization, it built its business around it. But the biggest shift came in digital. Starbucks quietly became one of the most successful mobile payment companies in the United States. Its app combined loyalty rewards, mobile ordering, and stored value payments into a seamless ecosystem. Customers weren't just buying coffee, they were preloading cash into Starbucks' system. This created something extraordinary, a self-funded growth engine. Billions in stored value sat inside Starbucks' ecosystem at any given time. The loyalty program drove repeat visits. Data analytics optimized promotions and inventory. By the late 2000s, Starbucks wasn't just a coffee retailer. It was a tech-enabled consumer platform disguised as a cafe. On the surface, everything looked unstoppable. But scale brings complexity. As Starbucks grew past 30,000 stores globally, cracks began to show. Speed slowed, lines grew longer. Baristas felt pressure from increasingly complex drink orders. Labor costs rose, customer expectations increased, and then the world changed. The pandemic hit, offices emptied, urban foot traffic collapsed. The very idea of the third place was suddenly under threat. Starbucks survived, but the environment it thrived in had fundamentally shifted. And that's where the real story begins. When the pandemic hit in early 2020, Starbucks faced a crisis unlike anything in its history. For decades, Starbucks had built its empire around physical presence, high-traffic urban locations, bustling cafe interiors, and the idea of lingering over a latte. But almost overnight, offices shut down, business districts emptied, travel collapsed. The third place disappeared. In the United States alone, thousands of stores were temporarily closed. International markets faced even stricter lockdowns. Revenue dropped sharply, comparable store sales fell by double digits. But the pandemic didn't just disrupt traffic. It accelerated long-term shifts that were already brewing beneath the surface. The drive-through divide. Before 2020, Starbucks' growth had been heavily concentrated in dense urban areas, especially in cities like New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. These stores relied on commuters and office workers. Meanwhile, suburban stores with drive-thrus proved far more resilient. Customers still wanted coffee, but now they wanted it contactless, convenient, quick. Starbucks had to pivot fast. The company began accelerating its store transformation strategy, closing underperforming urban cafes and investing more heavily in drive-thru and pickup-only formats. Smaller footprint stores optimized for mobile orders started replacing large, seating-focused locations. This marked a philosophical shift. Starbucks was quietly moving away from being a place to stay and toward becoming a place to grab and go. The rise of labor pressure. As stores reopened, a new challenge emerged: labor. Baristas were dealing with increasingly complex drink orders, higher mobile order volumes, and staffing shortages. At the same time, wages across the retail and service sectors were rising due to inflation and a tight labor market. For years, Starbucks had marketed itself as a progressive employer, offering healthcare benefits and tuition assistance programs. But employee dissatisfaction began surfacing publicly. In 2021, unionization efforts began gaining traction across multiple U.S. stores. Workers cited issues like understaffing, inconsistent hours, and overwhelming workloads from digital orders. Starbucks pushed back, arguing that direct communication worked better than union representation. But the movement spread. Hundreds of locations filed for union elections. The labor debate became both a financial and reputational challenge. Higher wages increased operating costs. Union negotiations created uncertainty, and public perception began to shift from a feel-good brand to a corporate giant under scrutiny. Digital success and its hidden costs. Ironically, one of Starbucks' biggest strengths, its mobile ecosystem, also created operational strain. The Starbucks app drove record engagement. Mobile order and pay became a dominant channel. Loyalty membership soared into the tens of millions. But mobile ordering introduced a new problem: invisible lines. In traditional cafes, customers could see how busy a store was. With mobile ordering, dozens of drinks could flood into the system at once. Baristas faced overwhelming digital queues, even if the cafe looked empty. Customers expecting instant pickup often encountered delays. Frustration grew. The system that once gave Starbucks a competitive advantage was now testing store-level execution. Competition intensifies. While Starbucks was adapting, competitors were evolving too. Fast food giants improved their coffee offerings at lower prices. Regional chains expanded aggressively. Boutique cafes focused on premium, artisanal experiences. And then there was convenience. Consumers increasingly made coffee at home using single-serve machines and specialty beans. During lockdowns, many upgraded their kitchen setups. Habits formed. Starbucks was no longer competing just against other coffee chains. It was competing against the home. At the same time, economic pressures began squeezing consumers. Inflation pushed food and beverage prices higher. A $7 customized drink started to feel less like a small luxury and more like a splurge. Starbucks faced a delicate balancing act: raise prices to protect margins, or risk alienating loyal customers. The China factor. International markets add another layer of complexity. China had become Starbucks' most important growth engine outside the United States. The company opened stores there at a rapid pace, betting on rising middle-class demand for premium Western brands. But recurring lockdowns, economic slowdowns, and rising domestic competition created volatility. Growth in China was no longer guaranteed. By 2023 and into 2024, Starbucks found itself in a transitional moment. Traffic patterns had changed. Labor costs were higher. Digital convenience came with operational trade-offs. Competition was sharper, and consumers were more value-conscious. The company that once redefined coffee culture now had to redefine itself again. By 2023, Starbucks wasn't in freefall, but it was under pressure. Growth had slowed, margins were tightening, customer traffic was uneven, and investors were beginning to ask a critical question. Was Starbucks still a growth story, or had it become a mature brand fighting to defend its position? To answer that, leadership made a series of bold strategic moves. A leadership reset. In 2022, longtime executive Howard Schultz returned as interim CEO for the third time in company history. His mission wasn't just operational, it was cultural. Schultz believed Starbucks had drifted from its roots. He emphasized reconnecting with employees, investing in store experience, and restoring what he called the company's soul. That meant upgrading equipment, improving workflow, and committing billions toward reinvention initiatives. But symbolism alone wouldn't solve structural challenges. In 2023, Starbucks appointed a new long-term CEO to push modernization forward while balancing premium positioning with operational efficiency. The mandate was clear: streamline complexity, restore speed, and reignite growth without diluting the brand. The Reinvention Plan. Starbucks unveiled what it called a reinvention strategy, a multi-billion-dollar investment focused on 3 pillars: store modernization, operational efficiency, stronger loyalty engagement. First, store layouts were redesigned to handle higher mobile order volumes. Equipment was upgraded to speed up drink production. Some stores introduced new beverage sequencing systems to reduce bottlenecks. Second, Starbucks leaned heavily into automation and workflow redesign. The goal wasn't replacing baristas, but making their jobs easier and faster. Because here's the reality: Starbucks' success created complexity. The menu had grown massive. Cold foam variations, alternative milks, custom syrups, seasonal drinks, social media-inspired secret menu items. Every customization increased preparation time. At peak hours, stores weren't just making coffee. They were operating mini beverage factories. Simplifying without losing personalization became a core challenge. The cold beverage goldmine. One of Starbucks' biggest growth drivers has been cold drinks. Cold beverages now represent well over half of total sales in many markets. They often carry higher margins and higher price points than traditional hot coffee. Frappuccinos, cold brews, refreshers, iced shaken espressos. These drinks photograph well, they trend on social media, they appeal to younger demographics. But they're also labor-intensive. A single customized cold drink can take significantly longer to prepare than a simple brewed coffee. Multiply that by thousands of stores, and labor cost pressure intensifies. Starbucks had to find ways to protect this high-margin category without overwhelming staff. Pricing power, a double-edged sword. For years, Starbucks demonstrated remarkable pricing power. Small incremental price increases, often just cents per drink, barely dented demand. Customers accepted them as part of the premium experience. But post-pandemic inflation changed the equation. When groceries, rent, and gas prices are rising, consumers become more sensitive to discretionary purchases. Starbucks raised prices multiple times between 2021 and 2023 to offset rising labor and commodity costs. Initially, traffic held steady. Loyalty members remained engaged, but cracks began appearing in certain income segments. Lower-income customers reduced visit frequency. Value perception became more fragile. The company introduced more targeted promotions within its rewards app to stimulate traffic, effectively using data to personalize discounts instead of blanket price cuts. It was a balancing act. Preserve brand prestige while maintaining volume. The loyalty machine. Starbucks Rewards became the heart of its defensive strategy. The loyalty program isn't just about free drinks. It's about habit formation. Members earn stars. They track progress. They preload funds. They receive personalized offers. Over time, Starbucks becomes part of daily routine. Data from millions of transactions allows Starbucks to forecast demand, test new products, and optimize pricing. In many ways, Starbucks isn't just selling coffee, it's running one of the most advanced consumer data ecosystems in retail. But even loyalty has limits. If store wait times increase, if service quality drops, if prices rise too quickly, even loyal customers reconsider. The brand identity question. At its core, Starbucks faces an identity crossroads. Is it a premium cafe experience? A digital convenience platform? A fast-moving beverage chain? Or all three? The more Starbucks optimizes for speed and drive-through efficiency, the further it moves from its original third-place vision. The more it leans into premium positioning, the more it risks losing value-conscious consumers. This tension defines its current era. As Starbucks moves deeper into the mid-2000s, the company faces a defining question. Can a brand built on emotional connection scale efficiency without losing its soul? Because this isn't just about coffee anymore. It's about relevance in a rapidly shifting consumer world. Global expansion, the next frontier, or the next risk? For years, international markets were Starbucks' growth engine, especially China. At one point, China was seen as Starbucks' most important long-term opportunity outside the United States. Store openings were happening at a breathtaking pace. Urban middle-class growth aligned perfectly with Starbucks' premium positioning. But the environment changed. Economic slowdowns, rising domestic competition, and shifting consumer spending patterns made growth less predictable. Local coffee brands began expanding aggressively with lower prices and digital-first strategies tailored to younger consumers. Starbucks now has to compete not just as a premium Western import, but as one player in a crowded, fast-moving ecosystem. And globally, expansion isn't as simple as opening more stores. In many mature markets, Starbucks locations are already densely distributed. Adding more units risks cannibalizing existing traffic. That means future growth depends more on increasing average spend and frequency, not just footprint. The competitive landscape. The competitive threat isn't coming from just one direction. Fast food chains offer cheaper coffee. Boutique cafes offer higher craftsmanship. Convenience stores offer speed. Grocery stores offer at-home alternatives. Subscription services offer machine-made espresso in your kitchen. And consumer expectations keep evolving. Today's customers want speed, customization, ethical sourcing, sustainability, digital convenience, consistent quality, and competitive pricing. Delivering all of that simultaneously is operationally complex and expensive. Starbucks sits in the middle of the market, too premium to compete on price, too large to feel artisanal. That middle position requires flawless execution. The economic sensitivity problem. Starbucks has long marketed itself as an affordable luxury, a small treat during uncertain times. Historically, that positioning worked well, even during recessions. But the definition of affordable is changing. When a customized drink can cost $7 or more, daily visits add up quickly. Multiply that over a month, and Starbucks becomes a noticeable budget line item. If economic pressure intensifies, frequency may drop. Customers might shift from daily visits to weekly indulgences. That small behavioral change, scaled across millions of customers, materially impacts revenue. The company must defend both its premium image and its value perception at the same time. That's not easy. Reinvention or reinforcement? Starbucks' future likely depends on balancing three core forces. Operational discipline. Simplifying workflows, improving speed, and supporting employees. Digital leadership. Expanding its loyalty ecosystem and data-driven personalization. Brand preservation. Protecting the emotional connection that made Starbucks iconic. If Starbucks leans too heavily into efficiency, it risks becoming just another beverage chain. If it leans too heavily into premium experience without fixing operational strain, costs will erode margins. The sweet spot lies somewhere in between. The cultural legacy. No matter what happens next, Starbucks has already reshaped global coffee culture. It normalized espresso in America. It turned seasonal drinks into viral events. It made customization mainstream. It pioneered mobile ordering at scale. It proved that a commodity like coffee could command premium pricing through branding and experience. That legacy won't disappear. But legacy alone doesn't guarantee future growth. The bigger business lesson. The Starbucks story highlights a broader business truth. Scaling emotion is harder than scaling product. It's relatively simple to replicate supply chains, expand locations, and build apps. It's much harder to preserve culture, service quality, and emotional resonance across tens of thousands of stores worldwide. Disruption often begins with clarity, a strong, simple idea. For Starbucks, that idea was the third place. The challenge now is adaptation. Can Starbucks redefine what the third place means in an era of remote work, digital ordering, and economic caution? Can it remain a daily ritual rather than an occasional treat? The answer will shape not just the company's next decade, but the future of premium retail experiences worldwide. Because Starbucks isn't just selling coffee. It's selling habit. It's selling comfort. It's selling identity. And in a world where consumer loyalty is increasingly fragile, maintaining that connection may be the hardest task of all.